Welcome once again, everyone, to the Cineworks podcast, episode 2. My name is Luis Alvarez, aka Luigi, and I am Cineworks Program Coordinator. And as always, accompanying me is my co-host and regular Cineworks collaborator, Brian Nguyen. And for this podcast, for this episode, we have Zoran Dragelj, and I hope I got that well. Thank you. Vancouver-based filmmaker. But before we begin our program, I would like to acknowledge that I am recording this program here on the unceded, traditional, ancestral, and current homelands of the Coast Salish peoples, which include the Musqueam, Squamish, and 𝗿𝗂𝘁𝘁 First Nations. And of course, that I am very grateful and privileged to be able to live, to work, to play, to create, and of course, to engage with film and filmmakers here. And of course, the work that we do here at Cineworks is always aimed to support, to inspire, and to encourage the independent filmmakers, especially those from underrepresented groups. And if anyone wants to search for us online, we have our website at cineworks.ca, and we also have a social media presence. On Instagram, we are Cineworks Ban, all in one word, lowercase. And on Facebook, we are Cineworks Society, all one word in lowercase. And finally, our Twitter is Cineworks. So that one is easy. And we have our email at education@cineworks.ca if you would like to be added to our MailChimp email list, so you can find out about any future events that we have at Cineworks and all related. I want to first mention a little bit about our guest. Zoran is an award-winning Vancouver, Canada-based auteur filmmaker who has served a two-term time at Emily Carr University of Art and Design as an alumni senator. He is also a longtime member and a new media director of International Press Academy and Satellite Awards in Los Angeles. Zoran has also taught film theory and directing at the Canadian Film and Television Institute. In 2005, he saw the first major retrospective of his short films and videos in Florence, Italy. In addition, his short films and videos have been screened and exhibited in New York, Toronto, Berlin, Stockholm, London, Yangon, Madrid, Venice, Milan, Montreal, and Vancouver galleries and art centers. His latest feature, the critically acclaimed Friends Like These, which premiered in 2019, won 3 major awards in Atlanta, Georgia, where it was screened. In 2017, Zoran Associate produced Dark Harvest, a successful independent Canadian feature film starring 𝗿𝗂𝘁𝘁, along with James Hudson, 𝗿𝗂𝘁𝘁𝘁, A.C. Peterson, and Hugh Dillon. Zoran's films and videos are distributed by La Bibliothèque Nomade Distribution in Brussels. Archive with 𝗿𝗂𝘁𝘁𝗂𝘁, the European Union's virtual library for the preservation of cultural heritage. Archive with Gateway to Archives of Media Art, also known as GAMA, network, and its feature in Transmedial's permanent collection, which is located in Berlin. With a melange of talents and skills, visual artist, music video director, and film director, Zoran remains dedicated to the world of motion pictures and media arts, which is what we're all about here. Zoran, welcome to the podcast. It is great to have you here.
Thank you, likewise. Good to be here.
Always a pleasure. And well, first of all, Zoran, we actually have had the privilege of hosting some of your work at Cineworks. We did a retrospective screening of a lot of Zoran's short film works. I really like first of all, I of course enjoy your work because it's referential to film itself, how it actually takes from different films sometimes, and you put a little bit of that reference. Like I was thinking, I believe it was Godard's work in one of your films where you are running away, I believe, which was a reenactment of a scene.
Yeah.
And also just in general work that I believe has also been used in installations, right? I think you had one at the Yale Roundhouse, if memory serves.
Yes, just last year.
So I want to open first with asking you, what inspires you? What are the themes or the stories that you're interested in the work that you create currently?
Curiosity. One of the first things that prevails in my work, it's curiosity, trying to figure things out, mostly by myself or with a group of people. Emily Carr, that was the amazing atmosphere. It was like what they would call a breeding ground for creativity and curiosity and trying things out. It allowed me. There was space and time. It wasn't really heavy on technical stuff, which I later learned. But it was great that the atmosphere and camaraderie of other colleagues, artists. At the time, we were all students, aspiring artists, but now we're all artists in our own right. We were able to try things out and work on different projects and figure things out. Case in point, I was recently, one of my mentors and dear colleague, David Rimmer, has passed on. And he was really instrumental in that curiosity and breeding that and allowing us to do it. So not just that I was able to manipulate the emotion and expose it and underexpose it and envelop it and then do the chemical process, bury the film over the winter underground, so see the deterioration of the celluloid. But also I was experimenting in cross-processing, shooting internegs or shooting positive and developing as a negative. So, you get an image that's almost as green as this background because the orange mask is gone. And so everything looks green. There's no color balance. And so a colleague of mine who is predominantly into audio and really well versed, good dear friend Jeff Davis, he saw that and he wanted to try as the look for his grad film, Listen, and then I was able to share all those little findings, how to expose it, where to overexpose it, where to underexpose it, which lab to take it, what notes we need to give it to the lab technician so he can process this film and get it out there. So that was the curiosity is at the forefront. Yes.
I like that. I think curiosity should be one of the main traits of an artist. Curious about exploring new ideas, new techniques, new themes, new concepts, just the fact that you're always exploring and iterating. And I think it's very important what you said, how university you had a very good experience in the sense that they let you experiment, they let you create, and sometimes probably, make mistakes because that is part of, exploring. Curiosity is a driving force to your work. And I know that besides experimental, you have also done a narrative.
Yeah.
So for narrative, a little bit more specifically, what are the stories? What are the themes that you're most interested in exploring?
There's a variety, and it all depends on time and space and the funding that's available. I'm admirer of a French New Wave, as you mentioned previously. Recognize my influence from Godard on me and my work. That was the piece called Zoran is Breathless, and that was actually a studio exercise. And I just didn't want to make it as an exercise. I wanted to make it like a little piece that can linger and stay a little bit longer than just like we can set up the lights and we can do it. And there was again, I'm pointing at my green screen backdrop. It was a green screen exercise at Emily Carr Audiovisual Studio. And so we needed to come up with something, and I just admired that piece, and it stayed always present in my mind. So I was like, oh, let me see how I can do this. And then it became kind of a legendary piece with the colleagues that it's just like I was able to pull it off, and kind of its homage piece, and it's also a piece on its own, and it has a little tongue-in-cheek comedy in there as well. Going back to the pieces I like to do, I dabbled in across the spectrum from comedies, dramas. I did an action film about 20 years ago, a short action film that but it has like a twist in the story. And then now trying going back to the road movie which I'm currently developing. It's called Driving Off, and it's written by my good colleague Dave Bose, local writer and a music admirer. Whatever comes in my hand, to my hands, and I really like it. I don't write a lot lately. I kind of moved away, but I do chart ideas and have some concepts that I want to revisit. And if I find a good collaborator, I may try with Dave after we finish this piece, and when because he's also involved with a couple of plays and another like a TV show that he's developing. So once the dust settles, let's see if I can revisit and maybe do it within the own confines with other fellow colleagues who are aspiring actors, up and coming actors, so they can try to do something that will help their careers or something that's off kilter, and give it a try and then put it together, because now equipment is really accessible. It's democratized, and you from your iPhone you can shoot a feature film like Tangerine. I mean, that was done like almost 10 years ago with iPhone 5S, and it looks amazing. To now with the better iPhones, iPhone 14, S and all the other stuff. It's just a matter of finding time and some remuneration for those participating, because I know people want to do favors and that kind of stuff, but it's also good to find appropriate budgets and do stuff properly.
I think that's very important. How do you find that balance between doing collaborations in a passion project that you want to help someone, even if their budget is small or no budget,
Yeah.
excuse me, but also to be able to take on projects that there is some remuneration, because at the end of the day, well, you still got to pay the bills. So
yeah. Especially in Vancouver, you do have to pay the bills. My thing was that I really, I can't say I didn't care about the pay. I cared more about the project, whether that was my project or someone else's. I just wanted to see it through being done. So it's not in a kind of infancy stage, and it's not going anywhere. There were projects, you get paid peanuts, and there are projects that there are, a good pay, and then you try to balance it and see. But regardless, my concentration, my approach, and my input is always the same. I don't value by the pay. It's just like, I'll try to do as much. A case in point, I'm involved with, I mentor from time to time, and I get different colleagues who I mentor, and they're trying to do something, and so I'm involved with their projects from the first page to the last page, to the first audition, to the last casting person, and then first shoot day to the last, and then from editing till the final cut. So follow through just to make sure that they make a project come to life, and they make project that's presentable, and then they can have something at the end of the day. It's all just seeing projects being done. That's what drives me as well. Besides curiosity, it's also seeing that there's no idling. People don't idle on one thing. It's just like everything. There's a progression. There's movement, and then projects are being done.
I think that's very important, actually, to collaborate with others, because you're obviously engaging with people who may share a similar vision, similar work ethos, but also you're learning from each other, and in a way that makes everyone's work a little bit better, because you're learning new skills from other people. And I believe a lot of people here in Vancouver do have a very good sense that collaboration is important, but I guess I still see sometimes an attitude of still not really fully valuing how important collaborating with others is. Even if you have very small projects that require very small crew, it's still good to get around and see what others are doing, and who knows, maybe even join their work, because I think not only is it a great learning experience, but of course you get to meet other people that you want to engage with, that you probably admire their work. And very importantly, that you mentioned, you help others with their projects, that hopefully the project does end up becoming something good that helps down their career path at the end of the day.
Yes, yes, that's the thing. And you can't be selfish. At least that's how I was brought up. And I'm thankful to my parents and my grandparents on both sides, that they installed that in me. That you share the knowledge. Knowledge is really important, because by knowledge you also, it's not just like trial and error. That's a secondary thing, but it's also what you know and what you can share, because if you have other really well skilled individuals who are working in video production or film or VR or now artificial intelligence, then you can draw, when your time comes, you can rely on those people, that they will give you equally good support, because you shared what you know or what I know. And so I look at it that way. Case in point, a good colleague of mine, Adam Rashid, he really excels in artificial intelligence design and work and video work. And so I was there many years ago, about 4 years ago, 5, when he was just like starting out, and we developed a good friendship. And then now, like, I can rely on him if I need some information. In case in point, I just got like an email. He was telling me, "Oh, try this," and he does really good prompts. So I was like, okay, I can try this prompt, and then we're looking to collaborate on a really short piece that we can do it in inside of a computer. We don't immediately even have to go and shoot anything, but it's just like a kernel of idea, his amazing skills, and you put it together, and you just have like maybe a 2-3 minute short that's all done in AR, and then you can pick and choose the look and the feel and all the other stuff. Another good colleague of mine is a really amazing photographer, and so the film that I mentioned, Driving Off, the feature film, he offered to come and to return the favor. He offered to come and document the production behind the scenes, and then he has some book ideas, and I said to him, well, maybe we can do a book of that will accompany the film with his work, and
That's awesome.
yeah, that will feature. So I mean, stuff like that. It's possibilities are endless, as long as you have a really healthy surrounding. And I like to treat people the way they treat me. So it's like a reciprocal, and that I now for over 30 years, it's been working, knock on wood. I'm glad, because that's the thing, is like sharing the knowledge, sharing the experience, being there for people when they need assistance and help. And sometimes I get like an odd phone call from someone who needs some ideas about distribution, or somebody who is mixing their audio and they have issues with some either unreleased music, what to do about it, what are the alternatives, and then also like the mix, how to remix it, and where to go, what's the good place, or just in general, like how to cast somebody, or they need a referral to a well-known actor in town, so this person can consider, and it's just a matter of picking up the phone or sending the text message to so and so and saying like, hey, listen, may I forward you on behalf of so and so the script, and would you like to take a look at it and let me know if it is of interest to you? And it just starts like that. It's a simple conversation. So yeah,
I think that's very important. And I remember what a local filmmaker here has said to me more than once. A lot of people are willing to say yes. You just have to ask.
Yeah.
So I think that's very important, being able to collaborate, being able to ask, but also being able to offer your own experience and your own knowledge.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to everything that you guys have said. During my experience as a filmmaker too, there's definitely a lot of people in the city who want to collaborate. Sometimes it's just a matter of figuring out what your limitations are and figuring out how to overcome those limitations. Yeah, yeah. So Zoran, you've mentioned that you've been a filmmaker for 30 years. I have to admit, I took a quick peek at your YouTube channel,
Mhm.
and you've definitely got a lot of stuff posted on here. Looks like going back all the way to 1995. I guess one of the questions I have for you is how have you changed as a filmmaker over the years? Like I guess you've definitely seen a lot of change in the world of filmmaking. I think in terms of the technology that's available to us and the the access in terms of how we can share our work with other people as well.
What's really great, like I had that Forrest Gump experience. This year, in September, it will be 30 years that I entered Emily Carr in film and video department, part of fine arts. And when I graduated in '97, there, after that year, there was no longer film and video. It it evolved into integrated media. And as soon as we left, the digital cameras, your VX1000 Sony cameras came in, the Canon XL1, they were starting to be used. Emily Carr, that same year, 97, 98, they just bought an Avid. They shelled out 200, I think $180,000 for an Avid, just the one single unit. And then some of us from that generation, the last generation of analog, and both in film, like celluloid, and in video production, Umatic, VHS, mini DV, sorry, no, mini high 8 and regular 8. And so what happened is that we were asked to come in and get like an extra classes or extra lesson just to get an update on the new technology that was coming out. I was also fortunate at the same time to get because I was excelling in cinematography, so I got extra courses by the Canadian Motion Picture and Sciences. I got like a grant to go and take my Panavision course. So there I was learning about 35 mil, and then also I was taking some classes with digital media and just to figuring out what it is and how to apply it. So I'm really fortunate to be on the cusp of the changes of the new dawn and what the new digital generation. And then like 98, everybody remembers the Candy IMAX that were coming in, and the new line of Z something Canon cameras that were compact, mini DV. You can shoot, plug it in, you can edit on a fly. We didn't have at the time YouTube that will come about 8-9 years later, but there were a few other entities online that were talked and discussed. So actually in 1999 I launched an online platform called Blitz Cinema, which was mentioned in many of the digital magazines and talked about it, and until about the fall of the dot-coms in 2001, shortly after the unfortunate September 11. We had, when I say we, it was myself and my business partner at the time, 𝗿𝗂𝗂𝘁𝗂𝘁, because we also had a media company, and then this was on our outlet, and we had a server investor from Los Angeles who hosted us on his servers. And then when the bust happened, he had to shut it down, and then I just transformed Blitz Cinema as my production company, because we were also doing some short videos and films. But that was a great experience, because it was just trying to figure out where and how you can post stuff, learning about codecs, how that you can do compression so you maintain the value of the image, and it's so you can go, I mean, over dial-ups. I mean, this would be a dream for a filmmaker, videographer 20 years ago, to have a live interaction, and I mean, 3 videos open up, you know, without computer, you know, bursting in flames. So that's really, and then just slowly, I mean, every step of the way now, like I'm reading stuff on AI and trying to figure out, you know, because now they say you don't need to have a green screen, you don't need to have a you know, rotoscoping frames. Everything can be done. You can manipulate the video footage to look like a claymation. I mean, I have claymation and clay animation animator friends who were like, just to do 2 minutes, spending a whole year, you know, moving things around, like Gromit and Wallace style, and so now you can just do it with a, you know, with a little prompt, and putting it online, and compressing it and putting it out, and it's just like a, you know, it's a great feeling that, you know, you have all this, but it comes down to creativity. What are you planning to do with all these? You know, don't be a technology chaser. That's my thing, is like, don't chase technology, because you will never catch up with technology. Technology is always going to be a step ahead, because the things are changing constantly in the telephone industry, with the, you know, iPhones coming out, and that kind of stuff. Just like a focus on one skill and do it really well. That's my also like a tip or advice to aspiring filmmakers or videographers who are watching this.
I think it's very true what you say about how technology is always constantly changing. It's good to be able to adapt to it, but more than just chasing the technology, as you say, it's about developing a skill that ideally will be transferable even as technology changes, because the basic principles will still hold true. Photography, composition will still hold true, even if technology changes. It's like, I always tell people that I'm a bit of a photographer myself, so I know that I have an iPhone, but I also have a DSLR. And of course, there are differences, and the DSLR does give you more options and whatnot, but the principles are still the same. And even before that, I used analog cameras. I'm that old. And even then, the principles are the same. So it's about the skills that you learn versus the trends that you chase. And I know, because you mentioned AI, I know that there has been rumblings around the different artistic communities in regards to the rise of certain AI systems, which, in my very personal limited opinion, I don't believe they're going to be dismantling our own role as artists. They're not going to be taking over, because at the end of the day, these are machines that's sophisticated, or programs. These are programs that, sophisticated as they are, I don't think they are, we have not reached the singularity. They are not self-sufficient, self-learning to the point like an actual intelligence that can also not just be cognitive, but even emotionally connected. So it is still a program. It's still a machine. It can emulate to some extent what we feed it and iterate on that. But more than something to worry, the way I look at it is as a tool. But nonetheless, AI is not suddenly going to magically make you a better artist. Because again, as you say, what are the skills that are you developing that will help you maximize the use of different technologies as they emerge? And I think that's actually a little bit of a question that I had, and what Brian was asking about how you've had this long trajectory as a filmmaker and how you started with analog. And I'm curious, it seems that you transitioned gradually as technology came by, again, sustained by the skills that you have developed. But still, do you feel there was any fundamental shift or any noticeable shift of how you made films from analog to digital? Because you know how analog is very precise, very unforgiving. A lot of the time, you do the legwork, so the end result is ideally as you imagine it, but there's no real preview. Versus nowadays, how digital media does make it democratically more accessible to everyone, more easy to preview the work at the moment and whatnot. but in a way, it also makes it, I believe, at times very disposable media. So I'm very curious that mindset, if it changed or if it didn't, then I'm curious.
It changed in interval phases. You know, like I did not, when I left Emily Carr, I was not affected by the whole shift into digital world. I still maintain what affected me was the cost factor. You know, shooting 16 mil film, aspiring to do projects in like Super 16, the one step above the 16 mil, and looking towards 35 mil. And so, you know, like around 5 years after Emily Carr, you go to film festivals, you go to film screenings, and you see other peers making that Super 16 feature film or short, or they're making a 35 millimeter short or feature film. And then you see cameras availability. You know, the cost is like, I mean, the cost of shooting film, it's going up, but the cost of the equipment is going down, and they're more accessible, cheaper to rent. And then people are, or for fellow filmmakers and colleagues to acquire them. I had a colleague who bought an Ariflex, and so it was at disposal. It was just like a matter of us like putting money together to, or working on other projects where we'll have the loose ends, you know, and then we'll load up and then do the camera test and figure out. And like you mentioned, it is really technical. You got to know your light exposures. You got to know your, you know, color correction, and then you film it. And then you wait for it for a week. You get it from the lab and you screen it and you look at it, you take notes, and, you know, and then it's like, okay, are we ready to do a project? With video and digital, it's just like, you know, you shoot it, you can see it within in the same time, depending on the monitor that you have. And then, you know, you can make the decision, you know, and then and also the storage media at the beginning was the tapes, and then it moved into the memory sticks, and now it's SD, and, you know, it's your SD card. So, you know, that's how accessible and cost effective it is. So, you know, again, I like to stick with something that works, and I like to work with that. I just don't want to be like, oh, you know, I need to shoot this now in the new, you know, Arri, you know, that just got released, or the new Komodo, you know, Red Cam that just got released like a week ago. You know, it's like, I can still shoot with a Crimson. I can shoot with some, you know, something decent that has the depth. If I'm looking for quality, if I'm, you know, thinking about distribution, it needs to, you know, like your Netflixes have like 5 cameras that they only accept the work. So, you know, if I'm aiming for that, or VODs, I need to take that into consideration as something that's you know, back of my head. If it's something that I'm just going to post on YouTube or post on Vimeo, it's, you know, if I can do it with something that's I have access to easy, like the iPhone or something like, I'm going to do it with that. So it's just, and also, you know, in that moment, just for me to go out and do it, that's another drive, or you know, that's what drives and inspires me too. So
I think that's very true about how the different types of media and platforms does kind of advocate how you conceive a project. It's definitely not the same to, and again, without taking any merit from any of these, it's not the same to suddenly make a quick TikTok video versus actually probably shooting something that's a little bit longer, and then you add some more editing and whatnot, not just filters, but actually trying to conceive the project like a film project, even if it's a short or a feature, versus what we post in social media. Although I do acknowledge that, of course, as the language in the social media landscape has become more sophisticated, of course, a lot of these videos, a lot of these productions themselves have become very sophisticated. So I always am fascinated how there's this crossover between television, between film, movies, but even between streaming, like streaming short form places like YouTube and whatnot, where it's mostly, or a great part of it, is user-made content,
Mhm.
and you get to see all these different proposals. And again, because of how it has become accessible. So I'm very curious, and I'm wondering what either one of you two think. But one thing, and this I could be wrong, I sometimes feel has been lost a little bit, at least, again, because of the immediacy and the ease of access and use of media, is some of that, well, two things. One, some of that discipline where you were definitely more meticulous and careful, usually, because you knew that film was expensive. You weren't quite sure how it was going to look unless you actually did all the preparation work or collaborated with someone who knew all the technical aspects. But also in the sense that, and it brings back to this comment about technology chasing, how a lot of the times it seems that many times filmmakers seem to be more obsessed with the type of images they can attain with the latest equipment. And again, that's very valid. Some people
Yeah.
really want the very beautiful, crisp, clear image. But sometimes I feel it can be at the detriment of, and again, this is definitely more towards narrative versus broader film. But again, how many times it feels like story and characters take a bit of a backseat versus getting the crisp image. But I don't know what you guys think.
I'm I guess I'm a fairly newer filmmaker compared to you guys. I think I only started around 2015. So um, I think I'm guilty of some of what you've mentioned, Luigi. I love looking into new tech. I love looking at new cameras and you know thinking about what kind of new things I could get if I had the budget. So yeah, but for me it's more limited by, I guess, by budget and what I can afford to get. So um, I have to admit I've only ever used digital technology for my filmmaking. I've never had the experience of using analog. So I can't speak to that experience with having to be think about how much film you can afford. But yeah, for me, being a digital filmmaker, it definitely helps out when you're trying to shoot a lot of different takes to try and get what you see in your head. Um, so I I'm, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to answer your question, Luigi. But yeah, for me, I feel that I, I feel that I lack the experience to know what kind of limitations analog filmmakers had to deal with.
I guess I'm wondering, on the one hand, what we gained by losing some of the limitations from analog to digital, but also what we probably might have lost a little bit, again, because of the same transition. How some things become easier, but sometimes some skills on a general sense are probably lost. They get lost a little bit. Again, we still see great films being made with great proposals, experimental, narrative, documentary, and whatnot. So, of course, it's not like we don't have great films still being made. I guess now, because we just see more the wave of everyone potentially being able to do all of these things. Again, as you keep mentioning, Soren, and I totally agree. Well,
Yeah.
not to advertise Apple, but just the smartphone, how it really revolutionized how we connect to the world, but also how we create. But yeah, what do you think, Soren?
Well, I mean, a filmmaker um, can have all the bells and whistles at disposal, but if the fundamental is the story, that's the fundamental. That's the core of the whole thing. If that filmmaker cannot express him or herself and tell a good story, what's the point of having all this gear at disposal? Or they can have all the gear, they can have a story, but they cannot, like, sometimes maybe the audio is they lapsed in the audio, so the audio is not, people can forgive the picture, but they cannot forgive the audio. that's that's the rule. So you have to have a good audio that people can hear. So
Mm.
it has to be equally balanced. I mean, it's one of those things that you got to be really well prepared to jump in. You have your Cameron style directors who tell you, grab phone or grab a video camera and make a film. I agree with that. It's just like, don't just grab it and do it, but don't do it as your kind of a first piece. Just like do it like shoot it and watch it, and then do, if you're comfortable at the second try, go for it. So just get accustomed to a camera, everything from how to hold it, how to point at it, what frame, how you're going to frame the shot, like you talked about it earlier. It's the basics of photography. It's the frame, and that in my experience, that brought me into filmmaking. Like earlier it was mentioned that I've been working in filming with the production for 30 years. Yes, but there were also X amount of years in my young adolescence when I was painting. That's how I started as an artist. I was painting. What happened is that moving to Vancouver, I was exposed to Hollywood North. In my building on the West End where I lived, there were all these guys from 21 Jump Street, and it was just like hanging with those guys and shooting stuff with them. And that led me to filming like their casting tapes and demo reel tapes. Led me to one of the cinematographers seeing that and inquiring who did this. And I was summoned because I also started doing extra work. I got introduced to Don Hunter, and he was a cinematographer on 21 Jump Street. And then he offered to be my mentor. And he says, he told me, listen, kid, if you want to commit, he said, I see something there. I want to help out, and I'll also learn a great amount of giving and also mentoring and sharing from Don, because he says to me, listen, if you want to commit and if you want to learn about the lenses and what each lens does and how to load up the camera and that kind of stuff, I'm there, and I committed to that, and I was learning. So you got to find out the basics, how to turn on the camera. That's starting from there, focus, and then run. Doesn't matter, even the iPhone, you have to make sure that it's focusing properly, or if you're using any of the apps, it's like how it is, or what lens, because with new iPhones you have like 2 different lenses and focusing and all the other stuff. So just get the bearings and then go out and create something that you can post on YouTube or Instagram. Instagram for me, it's a great platform. You can post stuff, get a feedback. YouTube too, as long as it's not something like it's apolitical or dealing with the current issues where people go off the tangent and start discussing their issues instead of focusing on the piece that you have done. So that's what I have to say.
No, thank you, Zoran and Brian. Actually, it's very true. It's very true how at the end of it, people need to do due diligence with either film, with analog, or with digital. You still want to create work that you want to iterate. You actually want to get better at the craft. You want to get content out there. You want to grow as an artist. And at least the way I've always understood it is due diligence. You don't have to be the most technical person, but definitely show that commitment that you're willing to learn from others. You're willing to, of course, also do a lot of self-studying, because a lot of this is tinkering, experimenting, and realizing that, oh, I guess that was out of focus. I guess that was not properly framed. I guess that acting, I could have given better directions. And again, just engaging in these different roles. And what would you say to emergent filmmakers about they have all this technology available, and how would you encourage them to be diligent, to really explore, and I guess also to collaborate with others? What would you say?
Start with short, 5-page projects. Write a 5-page story, and then try to find actors for it, and then find a camera guy if you don't want to shoot it yourself. If you want to also, if you know, so let's say most of the people I work with, we have our own little roles, and sometimes we can alternate and take other hats, and but try to find that, start with a little short project and polish it, make it so good so the process. The process from the kernel of idea, that's how it transfers onto the page, and that page gets onto the set, no matter how big or small the set is. It could be somebody's bedroom or backyard or a park, and then do something. Don't do something too flashy, because everybody these days want to get the attention doing something flashy, that kind of stuff. But sometimes simple stuff works the best. Look at, like, 7 years ago, there was a movie that hardly had any dialogue and won the Oscar for short film. And it was just a brilliant idea of this filmmaker that was just like, I'm going to make a film about a deaf person. Take it from there. And the idea, and it was so well done, so well polished, it crafted from the shots, to the acting, locations, lighting. Even though it was happening on the street, it was so well executed that propelled the filmmaker faster than it was just like something that's in most cases distasteful. So
But that's important. I think I agree that people start doing their projects no matter how small. And I guess it makes sense to start small because, again, going back to what you were saying, Brian, how many times we are limited by the budget itself. So all the more reason why you want to start doing projects that you're able to do, so that they don't get out of hand, because suddenly it's great to shoot to the moon, but at the same time, you have to focus probably on the one idea that you can really polish, that you can really, really iterate and just execute it. Because at the end of the day, you can have very big ideas, and of course they're valid, they're great, but you probably really want to pinpoint focus so you can really polish it until it's at a point where you say, yeah, this is good, and learn a thing or two, and if possible, to collaborate with others.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's a great opportunity to establish a collaboration circle with other colleagues who are there and who are looking for experience. You have young cinematographers who want to film; they're itching to do some filming. You have some guys who want to do audio. Or you have set designers and so on. So. It's just, and then what I keep reminding myself throughout this interview is like the social engagement that you guys produce at Cineworks. It's an amazing opportunity for young filmmakers to come and see a project. The program is spectacular because it has foreign cinema mixed with the local cinema. And so if you want to come and see something like anime or something that's outstanding from the world cinema, that great venue at the Black Studio, or if you want to see something from the local scene, it's as well. It's intriguing and exciting. And there's also many filmmakers and actors and other talents in the audience that afterwards, pre-screening and post-screening, are great opportunities to mingle and socialize and get those contacts. I met some amazing people that over the years that I keep in touch, and it's all thanks to Cineworks and to the social engagement. Because we can go to all the social groups on Facebook and, indie filmmakers of Vancouver and so on. They're great venue, the great platforms and groups. But it's also great to see somebody in person, shake that hand now that we can, and then meet that person in face to face, and share your enthusiasm and see how they respond, and if they're willing to come on board, and it's a done deal. So you're eliminating a lot of process of talking back and forth, via chat or texting or that kind of stuff. You meet somebody right there, and you could be rolling camera rolling in a couple of days afterwards. So it's a really solid community, and I'm really proud of what Cineworks has been doing for over so many years now, 40 years.
At this point, yeah, more than 40 years.
Yeah.
I know I've only been here for a few years, but I'm very grateful for the work that I do, because as you say, we do have a very engaged community. I mean, you, Brian, and many others who actually share their work with us, share their skills, share their knowledge. And again, the community itself grows together.
Yeah.
And we have the opportunity to just screen all manner of different projects from local filmmakers, filmmakers from out of town, even outside of the country. We also have other programs that engage community with films, as you say, like films from classic films or even something more modern, and again, discussing them and whatnot. And we're always seeking to give platform to filmmakers and also a space for them where they can convene, meet. And that's very important that you said. That is very true. I've met a lot of people who come to our events, they end up meeting and collaborations happen. And a week later, they're in a run and gun festival. So
Yeah.
I think it's actually great how that happens. We seem to be almost out of time. And I know that it always flies by when, man, the talk is always very good. But Brian, do you have any last comments or questions you'd like to make?
Technically, well, yes, but I think that would lengthen the conversation too much. But yeah, it was good to meet you, Zoran.
Likewise.
Is there do you have any projects I guess that you want to plug? I'm just looking at your IMDb right now, and looks like you have a project that's in post-production right now, 𝗿𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏
Oh,
Mi Amigo.
Beto, mi amigo.
Yeah. I have to finish that project. I promise you here that my dear friend and collaborator and co-director with this, Diego, who came on board of this project. It just started as an idea. It was pitched to me by somebody I knew who was living in Costa Rica. It's the snowbirds, Canadian couple who were living there, and they were living next to this Beto guy. Long story short, they called me up and says, like, you got to come down to Costa Rica, be our guest, and visit in and see this Beto. He's like a eccentric, self-taught artist who excelled in sculpture, painting, drawing, and then he also taught himself karate. And I was like, come on, that was Thursday night. They called me back and they says, we reserved the tickets. You just have to come. And that week, Air Canada cut their 5-day flights to Costa Rica from Vancouver only to one, which was on Saturday. So I was like, okay, Friday, go get all the equipment ready. And then I also had a couple of colleagues in Costa Rica. So like I booked off two weeks, 14 days, 1 day to travel back and forth each. So 12 days to be there. I'm giving this Beto guy maybe 4 days, I ended up spending all 12 days with Beto, 3 days in the jungle, being guest at his place that he built with his own hands, 3 floors. His grandchildren live on the ground floor, his children on the second floor, and he lives in like eagle's nest, open roof, so he can see the sky. He contemplates, get these ideas, and it was just fantastic. And then we went to if you are anywhere in South and Latin America, and if you are on a carousel, there's about 90 carousels with his work, with his handwork. He casted all these horses, and he did also church commissions, mostly in the late 70s, early 80s. Jesus the Redeemer style, where he basically used his body as the reference. He crucified himself with no nails. He tied himself for 6 hours, so he was dangling just to get that. Because he's another curious guy, because he wanted to know what the human body goes through being crucified. And so he was like there, and there's a little clip which we animated because I only had stills, and his kids are laughing their ass off. They're like 5 and 6 year olds laughing at the dad is a loco, on a cross, and he just he wanted to know, and I don't speak a word of Spanish. I was there for like 12 days with Beto, and I was just rolling the camera, like I was feeling, until I got Diego on board. Diego came from Guadalajara to study filmmaking in Vancouver. I got introduced to him by a mutual colleague, and I don't know if this is his cup of tea. He again, we started collaboration, and he wanted a little bit of mentorship, which we still do online because he's still in Guadalajara. And he says, I'm going to come and transcribe this, translate for you. And so I gave him the SD cards. He's doing his work. He finished after like 4 or 5 days, and he says, like, can I try something on editing bay? And I'm like, by all means. And then he started putting the story, and I start sitting next to him, and we're like, what's this? And he's like, oh, well, he's saying, and then he did such a great job transcribing that I knew exactly at what point what's being discussed. So, and then it was highlighted, so I can take that. And we started putting the storyline. So we had a storyline of his work. It's just that I'm not confident at the moment releasing the film, because I need that opening, that like captivating opening that explains what I just mentioned to you, why I went there. I'm just trying to work. And I promised Diego, now I'm promising you guys that soon I will have something ready to show, and maybe to screen it at one of the upcoming in a fall or winter Cineworks screenings. So that's about Beto Mi Amigo, amazing fellow.
We definitely will gladly screen Beto Mi Amigo at Cineworks. We're more than happy to do that. And of course, I also want to thank you, Zoran, again for being our guest. Always a lovely time. We will definitely have you back at the podcast to talk more. For now, our time is up. And of course, I always want to thank Brian and of course our guest. And to everyone who watches the podcast, please don't forget, if you want to visit us and know a little bit more about Cineworks, about what we do and our upcoming events, you can check out our website at cineworks.ca. You can also check out our social media. We are on Instagram as Cineworks Van, one word. Also on Facebook as Cineworks Society, also altogether one word. And on Twitter as Cineworks. And you can write us at education@cineworks.ca if you want more information on upcoming events, as well as to be added to our MailChimp email list, so you can be on the up and up of what's happening over at our space. And of course, if you want to check out Zoran's Instagram, you can go to Attention Van, that's his Instagram, or his Facebook as 𝗔𝗍𝗀𝘂𝘁. And I always wonder if I'm pronouncing that right.
It's just silent J. Dragelj. It's fine. The Dragelj is good. It's I'm not gonna take it against you. So
thank you. But just in case, spelled as 𝗔𝗍𝗂𝘁. So that is his Facebook handle. And for now, you have a good time, everyone, and we will see you soon on the next Cineworks podcast. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.